Hello, Dr. Marcy. This is Jeff Jenkins with my group facilitation summary from week 10 on improving professional learning on an article written by Dr. Laura Savage entitled Who is a Professional in a Professional Learning Community? An Exploration of Teacher Professionalism in Collaborative Professional Development Setting. The focus, basic article synopsis, was that Dr. Savage was analyzing how we define professionalism in four different conceptualizations. First of all, is a professional teacher a scientist? Is a professional teacher a caregiver? Is a professional teacher a social justice advocate? Is a professional teacher a learning manager? She chose to frame this through the context of professional learning communities. And she saw the focus, my interpretation of what she was trying to put forth is that there's no one easy answer in terms of how teacher professionalism is viewed both by teachers themselves, by administration, and by the greater community, the external community surrounding the school, and just in general how people interpret teacher professionalism. There seemed to be a lot of disparity between the definition of professionalism and how it applies to different careers, whether it be a doctor or lawyer or engineer, which are much more scientific based and fall in the conceptualized category of teachers as scientists. And then yet you've got teachers that the focus is on people wanting to leave their children in your hands. And so as Nicholas said in the summary, you are in parentis loci, which basically means you're acting as a parent when they're not there. So how does that fall under level of professionalism? There was also the looking at, in terms of medicine and in law, how you would analyze duties and obligations for their standings to maintain their professionalism, and how you do the same thing with teachers. Two questions I chose were designed specifically to build upon this, open-ended questions that I was hoping would challenge the teachers, challenge the people within the class, and also evoke some passionate responses, because if you're talking about teachers as professionals and how they interpret themselves and their role and how the community views them, often is a very emotional and heartfelt context. But again, as the discussion demonstrated, everyone has their own view of what a professional is, and how teachers define themselves as a professional. And one of the most interesting things, and I think this was what Dr. Savage was also getting at, was everybody in there had commonalities in terms of how they view professionalism, but everyone in there also had their own unique twist to it, their own unique interpretation to it. So again, we're all different in terms of how we view ourselves as professionals. The impact in terms of school leadership and the framework in which schools operate, I think that's one of the key things that Dr. Savage was trying to get across, is that school administration has to understand that teachers, professionalism with teachers wear a variety of different hats, and that you have to be aware that all these interpretations exist. You have to be able to coordinate these. You have to know your staff and understand how they view themselves as professionals. You have to view as a school leader how you view yourself as a professional. The last concept that she talked about was the professional teacher as a learning manager. As an administrator, are you simply just someone who organizes things, sets schedules, makes sure things happen, sets up and establishes PD, coordinates things, records data, looks at EQAO scores and responds accordingly? Or are you also wearing those multitude of hats? And I would argue that you do wear every hat in there. So I think the key thing out of all of this was that school leaders need to understand that every one of their teachers views themselves as professionals somewhat differently. It's their role is to find some commonalities and move forward, and any professional development also has to take this into account. The two questions that I chose, again, were to challenge and to evoke some passionate responses. My first question was the author presents four conceptual models that she uses to frame different views of teacher professionalism through the lens of professional learning communities. How do you feel professionalism would be defined in one specific manner? How would you define teacher professionalism? And again, as I was just saying, I think the key thing here is that there was not one person was in complete agreement with the other. What I saw time and time again through this discussion was somebody would identify what their definition of teacher professionalism was, and the next person would come along and give their 2 cents worth, and then the person would respond back, or I would respond back and say, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about it that way. So let's incorporate their own view of that into their personal definition of teacher professionalism. Joseph and Janice provided two great links to extra research for this with the Ontario College of Teachers and how they define professionalism, and and both of them, and Janice through Joseph through the Ontario College of Teachers and Janice through the Ministry of Education in the province of Alberta. Both of them aligned fairly well, and the key thing for there is they both recognized the fact that there are multiple hats teachers wear, and so their professionalism needs to address all of those areas. The second question that came into being, and this is the one that I knew would challenge and evoke some passionate responses, was to what extent, in quotes from the author made the following statement. The question, to what extent is a teacher professional, is not new either. No shortage of literature puzzles over whether teaching is a profession, a semi-profession, a vocation, or one that anyone can do. And my question was, how do you respond to the statement? Is a teacher truly a professional? Is there a correlation between how teachers view themselves as professionals and their willingness to participate in professional development? And I think that this one, right off the hop, I got a response from Rebecca, who was very passionate about a response. She signs her name. When she signs her name in a professional setting, she finishes it with the acronym OCT, just like a doctor would have MD after theirs, or an LLW for lawyers. So she had a very passionate response. She truly views herself as a professional. But again, every teacher, every person in the class added something different with regards to that. And I like Dave's response. I think truly looked more at questioning whether teachers are professionals or not in that regards, and how you, especially in Ontario, how do you combine, or how do you coordinate the fact that there's a teachers union and a college of teachers, and as Dave said, a college of teachers that was not designed for them, unfortunately, not designed by them, but was imposed upon them. And I think that's the key thing. You're posing a professional label on somebody when they already have their own personal definition of themselves as a professional. Now someone's imposing something upon them rather than being part of it. And I honestly think that there's an active part by the unions to be able to battle what they can. They view the OCT as they view school boards almost as the enemy. We're going to fight against this. We're going to fight against that. We're going to support a teacher in this aspect. And I don't know if in the long term both can survive. And so it'll be interesting to see how that progresses. Again, the questions that I chose, I wanted to challenge people's thinking. I wanted to make certain that they've looked at their own and analyzed their own personal views on things. Something that people don't think about too much really as a teacher until I read these readings. I read, yeah, I'm a professional. But now, how am I professional? Why am I professional? In what areas do I view myself as a professional? I think that's what got people, allowed people to think a little more through this discussion, this group facilitation, was people looked a little bit more at their own personal viewpoints and their own, the way they interpret themselves as a professional. And I think the links for leadership and organizational structures within schools, and the key thing for leaders is you have to identify that teachers are professionals. You also have to identify that each teacher that you are working with is a professional and there are some commonalities, but each one has their own viewpoint of what a professional is. And I think also if you're looking at professional learning aspects and opportunities, you have to keep this in mind, that people's views different. You have the teacher that shows up 15 minutes before and leaves 15 minutes after school. And so how do you provide professional learning for them when their idea of professionalism and basically they act as if it's an hourly wage instead of a salary, as one of our people in our discussion pointed out. So I think the thing that I gained most from this was the realization, and it's been there all the time, it's just a matter of actually looking at it more closely, is that teacher professionalism is something that is fluid based upon where you are, whether you're in an international setting, whether you're in North America, whether you're in Asia, wherever you are. It's fluid, it's changing, there are commonalities, but you have to be able to understand that as a school leader, that where you are and the staff that you're working with, they will have variations in how they view themselves as a professional. You have to understand that this will have an impact on the types of professional development you offer, the way you establish your school, the structure and setup that you look at, and you impose or not impose in the school, but set up and establish for your school. So a very interesting learning through this. I love the responses I got from my peers in the class. The passion and the hopefully forcing them to think a little more about that, And it was a wonderful opportunity, and thank you very much.